So no man can save himself out of their hands when God will deliver him up for His glory. We shall or shall not suffer even as it pleaseth Him. God has appointed, I'm still reading Spurgeon, and I'm just putting a collage of text together here. God has appointed who will suffer. Revelation 6:11, a full number of the martyrs who are appointed must come in. God has appointed when they shall suffer. Acts 18:9-10. Paul, nobody's going to hurt you yet. John 7:30, it was not His hour, therefore He passes through the midst. The time will come, God will deliver His Son over. Till then, nobody can touch Him. God determines where this or that saint and good man shall suffer. Luke 13:33, it cannot be but that a prophet shall perish outside Jerusalem. And on the Mount of Transfiguration, they discussed what kind of sufferings He would experience in Jerusalem. God has appointed what kind of sufferings this or that saint shall undergo. Acts 9:16, go tell Paul how great things he must suffer for my name. And John 21:19, he says to Peter, I will show you, or I have showed you, by what death you would glorify God. God has determined that Peter would be crucified upside down. Our sufferings as to the nature of them are all writ down in God's book, he says. And though the writing may seem unknown characters to us, yet God understands them very well. It is appointed who of them should die of hunger, who is to die by the sword, who should go into captivity, and who should be eaten up by beasts. And that's almost a direct quote from Jeremiah 15:2-3. Now, what was His aim in talking like that to these saints who might well suffer in that horrible way? Let me insert a parenthesis here just to show you how I deal with this. I wrestle with this emotionally almost daily because I read the newspaper. I opened the newspaper up last week, right after the earthquake. First I heard the news, 100, 200, 500, 700, 1,000 people. God, move your people. Move your people now. Let's go. Show your compassion. Move. I know you did it. Why you did it, I don't know, except at least you want this, that your church would move in power and compassion. There, move them. Let's go. And then I opened the newspaper. Now, I confess to having a little touch of claustrophobia. Because when I was about 14, I went into the woods across the street from my house and with my friends dug a cave straight down on a bank like this. And then when we got down, so it was over our heads, we started in like this, just digging like this. And I can remember going down in the hole, lying on my stomach, crawling into the hole and scraping like this. And then wrenching my way back, pulling the dirt out and putting it in a bucket and sending it up. Is that stupid? I have nightmares about that to this day. I'm usually awake when I have them. And I opened the newspaper. You saw the picture perhaps. Here's a collapsed building and the workers all over it. And they're pulling. And here's one little face of a man like this. And he's just crushed underneath. And his eyes are just terror-stricken looking at the man. And I just trembled when I saw that picture. I just trembled. I said, if I were in that position and that were on me and there were these big beams going and at any minute you just might be severed or back on your face. You know what I think? God's doing that. God's doing that. That's why there's a problem of suffering in the world. It's not statistics. It's not statistics. It's a little girl in Texas falling into a 12-inch pipe. You remember that one? The whole nation watched for days. And they bored a hole this way. They bored a hole this way. You're her dad. And you stop. And her leg is trapped up like this. And she's, what, 2? And for a while she's crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. Mommy and Daddy, and your heart is being absolutely ripped to shreds. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. If you can't believe in the sovereignty of God at a moment like that, just give it up and quit the ministry. And I admit, I can say this right now, but I admit, if my little Talitha experiences that this afternoon, I will scream, oh God, oh God, oh God, come, deliver, why not? And I will wrestle. And I pray God will help me believe, because this is what the Bible teaches. I just read it this morning in my own personal devotions in Genesis 4. A lot of us are reading through the Bible this way. Exodus 4. 4:11. Who is it that makes a man blind or seeing or deaf or dumb? Is it not I, the Lord? You just have to quit the Bible or believe in the sovereignty of God. You can't have it both ways. I don't care what theologians at Bethel or anywhere else are saying. You can't have it both ways. You have to believe in the sovereignty of God. He says, I have handled this in a few words, this issue of suffering, to show you that our sufferings are ordered and disposed by Him, and that you might always, when you come into trouble for His name, not stagger or be at a loss, but be stayed and composed and settled in your minds. So I just plead with you, get this fixed before you have to be in that crushed situation yourself. I've had some wonderful testimonies in this church. Let me tell you one. This isn't in my manuscript, but it comes to my mind, and I'll risk it. I just have 4 more pages here, which could take a half an hour, but I'll hurry. A family came to our church. In fact, she may be here. I don't know. You're welcome if you're here and you wouldn't mind me telling this story. Started coming in May. Came to me last November or so. Tears, standing right there after a sermon, saying, we had to leave our other church. We won't go into the details about the problems, but we have learned more about the sovereignty of God in these 5 months or whatever it was than we did in 20 years previous. That week I got a call from them that the doctor wanted their son to come quickly because something was very wrong with his blood. Well, here we are 2 months later. He has leukemia. He just had a bone marrow transplant on the 12th of January, I believe it was. And he's, I hope, going to make it. So here's a family, got introduced to the sovereignty of God in the most radical form, and are tested immediately with a 21-year-old son who now had to have his bone marrow killed and have his brother Matt's bone marrow replace his, which isn't exactly perfect match, 80%. It's not a very good chance. And Bonnie said to me, I would have gone insane without the sovereignty of God. I hear those stories a lot, which is one of the reasons I get worked up about these things. They are pastorally precious to me and to millions of people. He warns against revenge. He warns against revenge of those. Listen to what he says about the persecutors. Learn to pity and bewail the condition of the enemy. Never grudge them their present advantages. Fret not thyself because of evil men, neither be thou envious of the workers of iniquity. Fret not, though they spoil thy resting place,